All right, it says we're live. Okay. Yeah, y'all, I know you're getting a whole lot today as far as content from us. We got a whole bunch of content. The stuff you have been watching was recorded a week or two ago, not quite that long. But anyway, we knew we were going to be in Texas for a while for William to get married. So, and thank you, by the way, for all the people out there saying congratulations. Thanks, Dwight, and a number of others. But yeah, we recorded a few things extra. And of course, for tactical reasons, obviously, we don't want to let the whole world know that we were gone. So now you know. We're actually back here when that other video came out. So yeah, I know it's like a mountain of content coming out, but hey, y'all, today I'm pretty excited about the guest I got on today, folks. Look, for a number of people out there, many of you that email me, you're going to want to listen and you're going to want to pay attention to what's going to be discussed today. I got Tag from Life Done Free. He's got a YouTube channel on here too, y'all. And please go subscribe. You're going to be glad you did, because he is living what everybody should view as the American dream, at least in my view. And I live it too, to a certain extent. My friend Danny from Deep South, a lot of other homesteaders I know are living that American dream too. And you might be surprised that it isn't what the mainstream tells you it is. What's that all about? So anyway, I got my man Tag on here. We're going to learn a little bit about him. And folks, like I said, this is an interview you are going to want to pay attention to. You might even want to get some paper and pen, because he's going to tell you an extraordinary way about how he's achieved the American dream and how he's achieving it even more. So Tag, thank you so much for being on here, bro.
Yeah, Billy, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, if you hear a little bit of noise in the background here, bro, I mean, just when we began this, it is actually raining from a blue sky right now here in Western North Carolina. So, and then you're probably hearing the pig get lit up right now. So anyway, thanks everybody for joining us right now. Tag, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Like I said before, every good superhero movie has an origin story. So why don't you tell us yours?
Yeah. I've been prepping for a long, long time. It started for me in about 93, but it was really kind of more conceptual. And, we did little things along the way. And for a little bit of background, I've worked as an executive for a financial holding company for many years and, raised, hundreds of millions of dollars and, all of these great things. And, but as that time went on, I began to realize that the scheme was exactly that, a scheme, that there was no such thing as equity. And, the idea of the, retirement, it's really not there. If you really look at the numbers and look at mortality tables and look at the way it really isn't. And, the American dream wasn't what I was programmed, to believe through, watching television growing up. And, so my wife and I, just prior to the 2008 housing crisis, kind of came to the conclusion that all prepping ends in homesteading, that you're going to get there eventually. It can take, however long it takes. And so we began to put little pieces in place. We began to save our money. Now fast forward 9 years later, I had amassed enough cash that I could go buy a piece of land in cash. And so we did that and had enough money to build a home. And so we started constructing our home, and I'll talk more about that later, but, we built our home ourselves with our own hands, all the way through. But it was a really, really good thing I did, because now fast forward to, 2020, and, COVID was the thing, was going crazy, all over the place. And I had received an email in 2021 from the CEO of the company that I worked for. And he asked me how I felt about mandating the thing for all the employees. And Billy, understand, I was in charge of all of them. And these are people that I know all their kids. I know their spouses. I know their life. I care about them. I want what's good for them. And it was really never about the thing for me. But what I said to him was I was not supportive, that I did not believe that an employer in any way had any kind of ownership whatsoever over the employee, over their body. What they do is their own personal decision, and we should support it anyway. Furthermore, I believed that it violated the HIPAA laws. Well, about a week went by, and I got another email that said, we are now going to mandate this thing for everybody, and I want it done by May the 1st. That gave me 30 days. And boy, Billy, I have to tell you, it put me in a horrible position. Did I want to give up what I spent my whole life working for?
Right.
Did I want to walk away from all that? Or was I going to do what I thought was right and, take a stand and be true to what I thought leadership was? And so I went home and I said, babe, love you, but here's the deal. I'm going to take a stand right here. and it's not going to go well for me because I know how this works. And so another week went by, or 2 weeks went by, and the May 1st deadline came up, and he sent me another email asking me the status. I told him the status, and he exploded on me, and he said that he expected more from a leader and that I could no longer continue my role. It was a good thing that I had already, bought a piece of land. My house was 70% done. When we moved in, we were showering outside for the first 11 days because I didn't have water in yet, and those kind of things. But the good news to this whole story is, for every door that closes, another one opens just a little bit. And here I am today. I'm living 100% off grid. I live in a 4,000 square foot home. I have a water system that's not just a well or rainwater, but I can also combine my pond, and I got 3 sources. I produce all my own power. We built the Freedom Electrical Co-op, and it's just amazing, and just the other day we had a storm that rushed through here. We had tornadoes south of us, north of us, and I looked around and it's pitch black except my house. My house is just fine. And, so that was really nice. I take care of my own sewer. I have, I'm out of debt. I have no bills. And after going through this experience, Billy, I decided right then that I was going to create a YouTube channel that did nothing but talk about freedom and did nothing but talk about how we can live in a way that gets us out of this rat race. Guys, the rat race is built to beat you. I mean, and I'll put it in just really short term. This is the American dream, the real American dream. What they don't tell you is that you're going to spend 40 years working for a business. During that 40 years, you're going to pay in millions of dollars of Social Security. You're going to pay in all of this money to this system. When you get ready to retire at 40 years old, most companies are going to give you a gold watch. They're going to tell you to piss off. That's what's going to happen. And then, based upon the mortality tables today, you're going to die in 5 or 6 years. You won't even recoup a tenth of the money you put into the system. There's got to be something better than that. I'm not living that life, Billy. Well, I hope did I answer your question?
No, you did. I want to back up a little bit. You did a fantastic job, and I think honestly, you got a great many people's attentions right now. Which, by the way, thank you everybody for joining us right now. I know there's a lot of you jumping on. If you would hit that thumbs up button, it tells whatever the algorithms are to let other people know that this is happening, because this is look. You'll probably see a common theme in a lot of the interviews I've done as of late. You'll notice that all of these people are A, freedom lovers, B, they are actually doing something about it or have done something about it. And number 3, they're showing you how you can do the same. So that's exactly what you're seeing here. Also, they're giving you should feel really, really empowered hearing what Tag just said, y'all. You really should. This is a guy that isn't more polished than spit and more glitter than grit. This is a person that's actually done it and doing it. And we're going to get into how you do it. But Tag, I'm going to back you up just a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're at this job. You're in a similar position where I know a number of others have been also mandated, because obviously they feel like you're a corporate chattel, and they're thinking because, okay, you're a corporate sharecropper for us, then we can pretty much direct your steps, which apparently you told them, look, get loose or get lost, and you chose to get lost. Now, there's a number of other people in that same position. Let me ask you. There's so many parts I want to take you back to, but let me cover one of the biggest questions I get in emails. There's a lot of people that send a lot of emails, and I respond to a lot of them. And they're saying, how do I detach myself? How do I get myself out of that rat race? What are the methods that you use? Because clearly you didn't do this overnight, just like I did. I mean, like me, you retired in your 40s. When I say retired, I mean, I'm just saying shifting directions. You don't wake up every day doing it for the interest of other people. Right. But tell other people how you make that transition, because that's one of the biggest questions I get.
Yeah, well, I think the first step in this is you have to identify the stroke. And when I use the word stroke, what I mean is, anytime anybody can hold anything over your head, they can say, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to turn your electricity off. Or if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. And so it's really about understanding all of those little pieces of stroke. And then it's just, like they always say, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And for me, my first step was get debt free. Don't owe anybody anything. Work hard on that. And then the next step was, okay, can I tackle power? Work on that, work on that, work on that. Can I tackle water? Work on that, work on that. Taxes. I mean, it's so crazy. A lot of people don't know this. You can make more money today on the backside of a financial equation than you can on the front side. It's just a fact.
Yes, indeed.
Most people don't understand this, but so for me, it wasn't just a single decision, as you mentioned. It was a whole bunch of decisions over a decade. that allowed me to get where I'm at. And, I think the advice that I would give anybody is, first thing is get out of debt, because as long as you're in debt, you're a modern day slave. Just a fact. I mean, think about it. I'm always fascinated by how we as a society judge our merit as a citizen by how well we hold debt. It's called a credit score.
Yeah. 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 We know the price of everything and the value of nothing, like a guy with a lot of once said. That's really what. Okay. So now a number of other people, and we'll get to some of these questions here. My property taxes are higher than my original mortgage. I'm right there with you, Dwight. There's some ways to avoid a lot of those. They'd probably cut the feed if we cover too much on taxes, but I have strong feelings about that sort of thing, as I can imagine that you do as well.
Yeah.
Tag, let me back you up one more time. And then I also want to get into this off-grid house, which I want to cover some of the big questions that I get that you are uniquely capable of answering. Okay, so you were working in corporate America, and I call it corporate sharecropping to a certain extent. Okay, so you quit being a sharecropper. Well, what do you say to these other people out there? I mean, they're going to assume that you made a fair amount of money doing what you did. Do those same principles apply to the person, let's say, that's working a job that doesn't make a whole lot of money?
Well, it absolutely applies. I mean, all of us are at a different stage, whether it be financially or whatever. And I did make good money, but I also made good choices. Billy, for the last decade, I didn't go to Disney World. I didn't go on vacation. I didn't buy a Coach purse. And I drive a Ford F-150 with 130,000 miles on it. I don't have a Mercedes parked in my driveway. It's about being committed to where you want to be. Anybody can do it. I mean, it'll take everybody, different amounts of time. And there's also cheaper ways to do it. I mean, just like my house, I built my house by hand myself. Every screw I put in myself. I didn't hire somebody to go do it. So you can absolutely do it. I think it comes down to commitment. This is what I'm going to go do. If you want to go get a caramel latte every single morning, that's your choice. I will fight for your ability to go get that caramel latte, but it's not going to get you where you want to be.
I'm right there with you, man. When it comes to how you get from A to B and this American dream, which I'd like maybe to have you cut a little bit more into that. I remember one of the big life-changing things for me in terms of finances was reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read them all. But that one there, they talk about they talk about this quadrant where your money comes in. The big thing was talking about taxes, how the corporate tax structure is a whole lot different from them as to what it is for you and me. You and I, you go to a job, or I'd say the average person goes to a job, you earn the money, you're taxed on it, and you get what's left. But in corporate America, you earn the money, you spend it, and then you're taxed on what's left. And then when you realize how all these things work, you say, well, this may be how, instead of saying, well, this is unfair, maybe we ought to start asking, how do I make that apply to me? Or, well, I better not say what I was going to say in regard to taxes. But Tag, what I want to get to is, man, I'm wondering if I ought to ask the question regarding taxes, because they might just go ahead and cut the feed. Man, forget it, dude. I don't live in fear. So I'm just going to ask you, what are your thoughts on that? There's a lot of other people asking me, hey, man, I can't get ahead. We're paying a fortune on taxes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the first thing is it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And if you can't find a way to break those chains a little bit and live far enough beneath your means that you can swing it, you're going to be in big trouble. But there's a lot of ways, guys, legal ways to go about lessening your tax burden. And I'll just give you some examples of it real quick. So the county that I live in, for example, you can build a building as long as it's less than 350 square feet and is not permanently attached to a foundation. It's not taxed. So make your decisions based upon the rules that you have to play by, but you got to go understand the rules, right? Here's another way. So, go form a business. It's one of the greatest tax advantages there is. Go get even if you're not doing a lot with it. See, because then the company, you could be an employee of the company, which means some of your money is income, some of it's dividend. Right?
Yeah, you can do a nonprofit. I mean, there's ways to get around this, but we, just like Kiyosaki and a number of others teaching those books, these are things that people generally aren't taught. So if you're not an autodidact, and you're not going to go out there and search this stuff out for yourself, you're never going to find out, because guess what? Your high school teachers and your college professors, they're as chained to the bottom of Plato's cave as anybody else.
Yep.
So
they don't want you to break the chains, Billy.
I'm sorry?
They don't want you to break the chains. They want you to be a good student through your life, work 40 years for a company, and as soon as you're no longer useful, they want you to die and get off the system.
That's exactly right. I couldn't agree more. So getting off that system. So you found yourself, you got your exit out of corporate sharecropping. Okay. And you were clearly setting this up over a period of time.
Mhm.
Well, you got to have some place to live. Now, this is being a permaculture designer, and being a proponent of preparedness as I am. I'm going to really get down to brass tacks into how you made that transition. I want you to cover it in more detail if you wouldn't mind, Tag. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you
you
bet.
broke those chains. You started this a while ago. You got some land. Now, from a permaculture standpoint, I got a list. I got a checklist of things that are important to me. What were important to you concerning this land? Let's start right there. What was the kind of land you were looking for?
Yeah, so if you're just talking about land, obviously I wanted a good water source. I wanted good ground. My land is half prairie and half woods because I wanted the resources of the woods. I wanted water. I have 3 ponds on my property, where we can fish out of or we can pull water out of whatever it is. But mine went even beyond that. So the first thing that I did is I did a threat and needs analysis. I looked at everywhere around me and said, okay, what am I most concerned about? And I began to build those threats in. And as I did that, that circle became smaller and smaller and smaller. And I actually ended up with about a 200-mile radius. Once I got there, I began to apply my needs, my water, the type of ground, those kind of things. And but I honed into just a little area and we began the search. And it took about 4.5 years of actively searching to find the correct piece of land. Another thing that was real important to me was how the land laid out. So like if you drive by on the main road that I live on, and it's not very main, there's not a lot of traffic, but you can't even see my house. I'm down on the other side of a hill and you got to go through a big old long driveway and all kinds of security and all kinds of stuff to get to me. But so I just looked for all of those things. My wife is a green thumb. She loves to grow. She loves to can. She loves to produce, makes cheese, bread, soap, chapstick, blah, 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 blah. And, I wanted to be able to provide her the things that she wanted. But like I said, it took a little while, but we ran into a piece that we're at the top of the water runoff, which was also nice for me. I'm not at the bottom. And I found a farm that hadn't been farmed in 50 years. So any of the pesticides, herbicides, anything of that, hopefully a lot of it was gone by then. And we could preserve that because we don't use any of that stuff. So that's kind of how I found it. It started with a needs and threat analysis and then found my little circle and started digging for what I wanted.
Okay, that sounds like a really good checklist to start with. So you had access, you got water, found the right location from a tactical standpoint. I'm sure it makes sense there as well.
Yep.
Okay, so now you got the land, you got all the basic checklists.
Mhm.
Now, why don't you tell people the kind of house you have, if you don't mind? I mean, I'm not sure how far and what direction you want to go, because we're talking about how other people can do this as well. So you got all those things done. Now you had to put up a structure. Now, folks, please pay attention on this one. Because he's doing something not a whole lot of folks are doing. Tag, tell us about your structure, how you began it, and everything you don't mind talking about.
No, this is easy. As I mentioned earlier, Billy, when my company that I spent all that time with did that to me, when they made that unconstitutional stand and attempted to attack my freedom, I'm not hiding anymore. Bring it on, whatever. So I don't talk about anything, So I live in a 4,000 square foot home, but my home was built in pods. So when we first started out here, I knew this day was coming. I didn't know it was going to end in the way it ended, with the mandate and those kind of things. But I knew my days were numbered because I know the system's rigged and I know it can only last so long. I lived it my whole life. I understand it. So the first thing we did is I built, so that would be about a 900 square foot pod. And in that pod, it contained a small shop for me to work out of, a kitchen, a bathroom, and 2 bedrooms because I could live in there if something happened. I always thought to myself, well, if it happens tomorrow, will I be okay? Then I built the next pod, which was a living room. And then the next pod, which was a laundry room, a bathroom, a pantry, another bedroom, my office that I'm sitting in here right now. And I actually have a 4th pod I'm going to build before my house is complete. But my house is super awesome. I've used, thermal mass to cool it. I have air conditioning that I can run on my solar system, but rarely need to. You know a guy named Mo, right? So one of my best compliments I ever had in my house, Mo, who, for those who know him, is an engineer, pretty smart guy. He walked into my house one day and said, "Oh, air conditioning." I had no air conditioning. It was that cool. But I've got multiple water systems. So my wife can wash clothes in rainwater and then shower in well water and then wash dishes in, pond water or whatever. So it's very adaptable. I've got geothermal. So we're pulling air out of the ground. Again, I built it myself. A lot of the stuff I didn't know, Billy, I just had to go learn it. I've been a lifelong learner, so it wasn't that big a deal. I took to it pretty easy. But me and my wife, we worked out here every single day and have now. We've been here 4 years, and just to kind of try to put it up. So I do not live in a little cabin in the middle of the woods. When people think off grid, I have every amenity you would think any other house would have, every single one.
But it's all run off solar.
It is all ran off of solar. Yes, I have a 21,000 kilowatt system. It runs through 3 inverters, 6 charge controllers, and a big bank of nickel phosphate batteries. A lot of money. I think I've got $63,000 on my solar system right now, and I'm still going to grow it. I'm not done yet, but I produce big power. And so, yeah, we do it all ourselves. There's not even a grid line that runs into my farm. No water line, no electrical line. Don't even come down my road.
Now, as far as redundancy on that, I mean, are you using any other means besides solar in order to do this? So let's say you have okay, I know that area where you live. I know it very, very well. I used to live there myself.
Yep.
And there are days when you can go a number of days without any solar energy. So
yes.
how do you adapt to those times?
Yeah, so there's 2 answers to this question just from a solar perspective. And we could actually take it a step further to wind, which would benefit that some. But so I have 2 ways. So the first thing is you got to have a big enough battery bank to make it. So I've got 10 3.8 kilowatt hour batteries. They're like a microwave. And so I can make it with not a 0 bit of input from sun. I can make it 66 hours before I need some input. And that's running a normal load. Wife's washing clothes, everything's just normal. But I also have a propane backup generator, and that's the only reason that generator is there. And it's trenched to a 1,000-gallon propane tank. This year and over the last 12 months, we did not turn it on a single time.
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess that answers that question. And it certainly doesn't hurt that you have a passively heated and cooled home, as I understand it. That's correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we heat with wood primarily. I have other heaters. So I went and bought Mitsubishi mini split systems, so I can control the environment in every one of my rooms. It's the most energy efficient way to go. So we can run air conditioning if we choose to, but we rarely need it. I mean, we didn't turn the propane on a single time over the last 12 months. We heated with wood the whole way. I've got 3 fireplaces in my house, and we just heat it with wood. And I got a whole bunch of woods I get to take from, so it's good to go.
Man, that's fantastic. Okay, we got some. Are you able to see any of the questions over here?
Yeah, there's some good ones there.
Okay, if you want to jump on any of them, feel free to. Like this one, thermal mass. Now let me ask one more question before we get into some of that. And thanks everybody out there who's joining us. Please hit the thumbs up. Now we're also going to be using thermal mass on a project we're about to start here pretty soon. Did you use the ground at all for any of that thermal mass, or is it? I mean, could you tell me how you're making the thermal mass work for you?
Yeah, so I knew nothing about it going into this, but Billy, in fairness, I knew nothing about solar either. I mean, so, it's just kind of a learning thing. So what I figured out how to do in my building is all my concrete pads, for example, they're super thick. So like my living room sitting on 24 inches of concrete.
Oh, snap.
And so, but the cooling that I get to bring up from that and the heat that I get to bring up from that, it heats up during the day, it releases it at night and cools the same way, but it also comes into insulation. Right, the way you insulate a building, the way where the windows are, letting the winter sun in and keeping the summer sun out. If you place them just right, you can do that. So I'm by no means a pro at it, but it worked great. I mean, I just built everything big, and again, I love concrete. A lot of people don't like it. I think it's a fabulous building material. It's cheap, durable, and so we just poured everything extra thick, and I continue to do it, and we'll continue to do it. I got a pad I'm getting ready to pour outside right now, and I'll make it 10 or 12 inches thick for a bedroom.
Well, it used to be cheap.
What's that?
Well, concrete used to be cheap. It's not so cheap anymore.
Well, it's cheaper than building with lumber.
Well, that is true.
I could buy, before all this stupidness started happening, I could buy a yard of concrete for $132, and today it's $144.
Wow.
So it's not horrible.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's definitely, the prices are considerably lower there. But okay, so you have, I imagine you got good windows, you got everything else. Okay, you got a geothermal system, which is fantastic. Now you got solar. Are you you touched on wind a little bit? Are you going to use any of that?
Yeah, I have not done it. Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I think that solar pairs with wind really, really well, because what it'll allow me to do is charge some at night. I live in Kansas. It's windy. And so when my solar system shuts down for the day, to be able to gain, even if it's just 1,000 watts, right? Just a small wind generator. At nighttime, you're not using as much power. Most people are just, watching TV or whatever. I could keep that charge, and I bet you I could take that 66 hours and double it with a small wind turbine. And I'm going to do it. I haven't done it yet.
That sounds like a fantastic idea. Now, your other half, I mean, you have a wife, clearly you mentioned a moment ago,
Yep.
and do you have any kids? Have they adjusted well to this environment? Are you missing any? It doesn't sound like you're missing any of the creature comforts
No.
in this. Okay, so your life hasn't changed a bit.
Well, for them, everything that was always provided is still provided. And it's fun, Billy. I challenge the systems every day. I try to make them more efficient. I'm just kind of wired that way. Try to figure out the best MacGyver way to do something. But no, I have two older boys who are both gone from the home. So they live in there. They're doing their own life, buying their own houses, doing their own thing. But they're super freedom oriented. I raised them exactly right. They'd be the first one to tell you taxation is theft. And, so we're good to go. But most of the time, it's just me and my wife here, and she's all about it. So.
Wow. Okay. So you got the house that's squared away, man, that alone, I could probably do this entire interview based on that alone, but I want to talk about some of what you got going on outside because, this is largely a permaculture podcast, which means we cover the home, everything from a lightning bolt to a lightning bug. We're going to talk about it on this, in this conversation. So outside, clearly self-sufficiency is a big, big motive in your life. And I've seen enough of your videos to realize that you got some things going on. But folks, I want you to go over there and check him out. You're probably going to want to subscribe. What do you have going on outside on your property? The house is secure. Sounds like it's very secure. Sounds like you got a number of things secure. What about your food systems? Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, you bet. Remember how early on we were talking, Billy, and I said that all prepping ends in homesteading? I think what you figure out along the way is that instead of storing food in Mylar bags and number 10 cans, you kind of just progress to this point where you're storing it in the seed and on the hoof. I think it's just a natural progression because you can only store so much and those kind of things. And so, we've got lots of chickens, that produce lots of eggs. My wife this year, for the first time, successfully hatched them under the chicken, which is a big deal. We've done it in the incubator, but she's got them coming out from under the chicken, which is really, really neat. She's very proud of that. My wife, who is the greatest human being I know on this planet, the only completely selfless person I've ever met in my life. And she is real big about what goes into our bodies. And so she grows it all herself. She's got a food forest. She builds everything in swells. She, we direct the water. She's got a gigantic garden. We'll probably plant 150 tomato plants this year. So we've got a nice large garden. And so she really is in charge of that department. I work for her when we're out there working in the garden. She'll say, "Hey, honey, I need this fence built, or I need these mounds put in," or so I'll do all that. But when it really comes to the gardening, the harvesting, the whether it be freeze drying, dehydrating, however it is, canning, she will can this year 100% of our salsa and spaghetti sauce that we will eat all through the winter. And we won't buy a drop of it. She'll do it all herself. So I'm real lucky that I got a wife who can make cheese and bread and chapstick and shampoo and the way she prefers to do that. I've got turkeys coming. We've got some sheep. I got a couple cows. Although they don't really do much but eat, so there's really not too much dynamic going on there.
Yeah.
But we want to expand it, and I want to keep growing on it, and just trying to continue to challenge the system of breaking free. My whole goal to living free had nothing to do with I want to be a farmer. I don't want stroke over me anymore. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the way the game's played. I'm just not going to play their game anymore. I'm just not going to do it.
Okay, let's get into that. I mean, man, I can talk about this all day.
Yeah,
So
I know.
It sounds like, especially being, geared towards permaculture, but I think there's something even more important than that. And that's, well, like your hat says it all right there. And I was telling you, yep, there you go. Free man. I love, we need to talk more about what you're trying to do there, but I want to get also in the community.
Yeah.
Look, there's a number of, man, there's so many people out there right now hitting me up saying, "Hey, I need to be part of a community. I need to do this. I need to do that." You covered a lot, and we can't go into a whole lot of detail. Folks, the idea is for you to go back and check out his YouTube channel and what they're doing there. He's kind of wetting your beak here, but if you want to get a PhD understanding as to what they're doing, you're going to have to go over and check him out. And by the way, hit the thumbs up. Check out Tag at Life Done Free. there's a lot of people realizing they're looking at the tea leaves right now and they realize, man, things are definitely not as advertised.
Mhm.
A lot of people waking up. They're coming up out of Plato's cave. Call it whatever. They're
Yep.
coming out of the matrix. Whatever, choose whatever you want.
Yep.
A lot of those people they're doing that,
Yep.
and they're asking also about community. Now
Mhm.
you know a little something about that sort of thing. What can you tell those people who are maybe in a city lot, whatever the case may be, or
Yep.
maybe that just might be a person who's already living rurally
Yeah.
and they're doing it because it's kind of the in thing to do right now in certain parts, let's say around Kansas, where
Yeah.
people have gone country, but they don't know anything about living in the country. But they are realizing now, hey, things are they're getting out of control. I can't keep up with the inflation. I
Yeah.
need community.
Yeah.
Tell them what you do. I don't know how much you want to get into this, Tag. I
Yeah.
know this is a question you were take it any way you want, but
Yeah.
talk about community, would you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would tell you that community is more important than anything you plant, anything you grow, anything you build. Because at the end of the day, you can only keep watch so long. At the end of the day, you can only do so many chores. I'm almost 50 years old, and it's a lot of work to keep the homestead up. I retired to work harder than I've ever worked before.
Same here.
Just the way it is. So I think community is critical, and we kind of practice what I preach. Over my channel, I do lots of videos on this. I have a community completely around me. It's funny, every time a piece of property comes up anywhere near me, we are fighting cats and dogs to put a like-minded family in that piece of ground. It's funny. I built, hundreds of millions of dollars of companies over my life, but my biggest dream is to build a town.
Oh,
I'll do it. So, it's funny how that works, but, so we do a lot of things, we do camp outs. I had 60 people at my house yesterday. We roasted a pig and just shot some targets and had some fun. But you got to be willing to give of yourself. If you're going to be a recluse and just sit back and wait for the world to happen to you, you're never going to get there. It's funny, preppers and even homesteaders a lot alike, they're kind of recluse in a lot of ways. And I think it's because we've been programmed, this 3-letter agency's watching you, or this is recording you, or whatever it is. Well, record me. I don't give a shit. I'm not, I'm illegal as they come, I just quit hiding. And a lot of people are like, man, aren't you scared? Well, I don't invite everybody to my house. But if I'm at Walmart and someone's buying canning jars, or I'm at Tractor Supply and someone's picking up chicken feed, I'm going to start a conversation. Who knows where it goes, but you got to be willing to get out there, guys. If you can't, you have got to get a community built. I'm telling you, the idea of packing your stuff up in the back of a Subaru wagon and hitting the hills and heading to the mountains, it is not a good idea. That is just not a good idea.
I couldn't agree more, but I would have totally disagreed with you up until, the reason I was kind of poo-pooing community, and some of the people in here might know, is that a lot of the times, well, my friends Darren and Patty back there, that.
Very well, very well.
Right. Well, when we were hooked up in a community with them, life was pretty good. And then when I thought I was kind of upgrading to where I'm going to, do this with family, community didn't work out. In fact, I became the world's biggest. I was like, I never want to be in a community ever again, having done this with my family. So just because the family doesn't make them good for you.
Right.
And then now, honestly, came out here with the loner mindset, been doing it for a long, long time. And then as the good Lord would have it, I come across some fantastic people out here where I'm back into the community minded thing. But what I'm finding out, and tell me if you see it differently, is that what I'm finding out is that the best community, at least from my world, has been, number one, not family, people that I share DNA with, at least my side of the family. And number two, you need to vet these people a little bit more. I take it there's something of a vetting process
to
go through. And what does that look like?
Yeah. So I kind of consider it 3 interlocking rings, Billy, is the way I look at it. So the first ring is your outer ring, and I refer to that as the mind, and that kind of references like-minded people. We know thousands of them, right, Billy? I know you know thousands of them. That's the pool. Right. That's the pool. And it's got lots of uses, right? You can network, you can, do, community buys, you can do all kinds of things. But as you get to know people, that kind of grows into what we consider the MAG, which is the next circle, the mutual assistance group. I know groups 100 miles from me in several different directions where, we'll get together and we'll buy a semi-load of wheat. We'll do those. We're not this super tight family, but we've known each other for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. We all get along pretty good. And then inside of all of that, you have what I consider the crew, which is the people that, hey, if a barn needs put up, we're all going to go put a barn up that day. The problem is getting from the third ring to the first ring takes time. It's not a quick process. I mean, you got to learn whether you can deal with someone's BS, right? And you got to be tolerant, and you got to be accepting, and you got to, because everybody's weird, me included. I'm super flawed. I'll tell everybody that. But it's about time. And if you don't get started on it now, you know, I don't know that there will be time. But what I know for sure is that I cannot, under any circumstance, keep watch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was a soldier, Billy, and I know how effective you are for how long on watch, you know, and there's too many chores to be done. There's just too much of that. So, I mean, I think the advice I'd give you is don't get frustrated with it. You know, you just got to find that right tribe. And there are people who will jive and not. You know, you and me know multiple people. I know that you and I have people that we know in common, even though you live there and I live here, that are in the middle that I wouldn't necessarily get along with, or you wouldn't necessarily get along with. And that's okay. It's not a bad deal. That don't mean they'll make them bad people. You know, it's okay.
Well, how do you address that then? Because there are people that will not. Now, this is a big one. I know I'm going to create some controversy on this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you do in terms of matters of faith? For example, let's say one person is a Southern Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you got another person over here. Now, I have strong feelings about how some of this should go. But I'll keep that to myself. This is about your opinions.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, so you got another person over here that, let's say, maybe an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have another person over here that may be some dirt worshiping heathen. Or you may have, and I'm joking about that, but you may have another person that has an animistic worldview. You got all these people in this pool you're talking about.
Yep.
Now, do you see there being a massive problem if you don't share the same faith as the person that you may potentially ford up with in hard times? How do you view that? How do you deal with it?
Yeah. So personally, now we're just talking about tag. Okay. I don't see a problem. The problem is a lot of people do. And so when you're talking about a community, I think it comes down to respect. I could be sitting next to a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Hindu. If they respect me, I'm going to respect them. And, you know, if we sit down at dinner, and this actually happens, you know, we just did the Midwest Preparedness Project, and right before we all ate, there was a big prayer, and I watched. And, you know, there are people who turn around and walk away, and it's fine. You don't have to be an ass, right? And I can live like that. But I think to some people it matters a whole lot. And you know, again, I don't want to surround myself with people who can't be tolerant. So I really kind of seek out that. Can we get along even though we have differences? Because I'm going to tell you something. If you hold everybody else to the standard you hold yourself to, and to the expectations you hold yourself to, you're going to spend your whole life being disappointed. Just a fact.
Man, I'm right there with you, bro. I'm good night. I'm trying to find, there's some sensitive questions I really want to ask, but I'm really going to keep it under my hat right now regarding some other matters. So I'm going to take it right back to your hat. It says free man. Okay. Yep. I knew right off when I saw the first interview with you. In fact, I mean, it's funny because we have these same circles of people that we both know. Everybody was telling me about, like, dude, you got to talk to this dude Tag. I'm like, man, I know that name. And I knew that we knew a lot of the same people. And I mean, it took a while to get here. Now, I'd love to do a roundtable thing with a group of us, but that's another thing altogether. Tag, I'm going to ask you about this free man hat you got on.
Yeah.
I live near a place. I live near Asheville, North Carolina, but I don't live that near to it where I'm in it.
Yeah.
Now, you wear a shirt like the one I'm wearing today, you're going to get cussed out at the mall like I did a little bit ago. Okay. Yep. Now, if you got a problem with a shirt like that, then maybe you got a problem with yourself.
Right.
So anyway, there's a whole story. I might even do a YouTube video about that. Now, your hat says free man. Now, did you make that transition? Was it your job that gave you the impetus to have the worldview you have, or have you always had it and you just decided that the position of your job made you pull the trigger? I mean, how did you make that transition? Because there's so many of us that think, well, they have very different understandings of what a free person is. I think you and I probably share the same way, but talk to me about that. How did you make that transition? Were you like everybody else tied to the whipping post and then woke up one day and said, hey man, this is all one big lie? I mean, talk to us about that transition, because really nothing that we've talked about thus far even matters if you don't first make that transition mentally up here. So how did it work for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I lost my dad not very long ago, and I was at his celebration of life, and one of the conversations came up about my dad used to always say, "Hey, Tech, why are you such a rebel?" Because I always challenged it. I bucked authority my whole life long, and I wanted to know why. No, don't tell me this is the answer. Tell me why this is the answer. And so it came fairly natural to me. But my real big turning point was I watched underhanded deals made right after left after left. I mean, just over and over and over again. I watched people get taken advantage of. I watched it, and I just didn't. It wasn't in my heart, man. I just can't live like that. I can't do that. And so as I moved up the chain in the executive companies, I just started as a sales guy, and 25 years later, I'm running 100% of the revenue, for a $140 million company. And I just didn't want to play the game anymore. And then there's way more to it than that, because there's the other pieces that come in. I watch, because I'm in finance, I watch the $30 trillion in debt we have today. And I watch the manipulation that goes on with, the whole thing that went over these last couple years. And I'm not opposed to pro or against. What I'm opposed to is lies and manipulation. What I'm opposed to is the programming that goes on every single day. And it just made me more awake and more awake and more awake, until eventually, me and my wife just decided we have got to get out of this. What do we do? I have no teacher. I have no book. How do I do it? And like we talked earlier, I identified, okay, here's the things where people have stroke over me: my mortgage, my car payment, my electric bill, and I just kind of tracked it all down. I wear this hat, Billy, with a whole bunch of pride. This hat cost me, I don't have millions of dollars or whatever in the market anymore. I'm not playing the game. I bought dirt and a whole bunch of it, so I earned this hat. And
Yeah.
so I wear it with pride.
Okay. With that understanding also, then there's a lot of people right now thinking, man, should I take my 401k out? I know you worked in finance and you did a lot of pretty cool, interesting things that I don't know that you want to discuss right now. If you want to, that's perfectly fine too. Man, I swear I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this question, man.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Regarding, because I know that you're on a knife's edge when you're giving people financial advice.
Yep.
And I know you can't really do that.
Yep.
But let me ask you this,
Mhm.
because this is another question I get asked. And in fact, I got asked it very, very recently in a private conversation. And it's difficult to answer because I know I'm going to answer it differently than what 90% of the people that they've talked to would answer it. Okay, you got a 401k, or you got some other defined pension, whatever,
Mhm.
and you see what the status quo is. You don't have to be Nostradamus.
Mhm.
Okay, Tag, pretend for a moment you were corporate sharecropping again. What would you do based on the tea leaves you currently see?
Yeah, well, I actually did it. And so
Yeah.
instead of giving people advice, I'm going to tell you what I did, because that will protect me. And, I'm not a financial advisor. You need to consult a professional, blah, blah, all that shit. Okay, so I can tell you guys, I have a little bit of money in the market, a very tiny bit. It's just because I like to play it. I like to buy startup companies and play with it, like Dogecoin. I made a ton of money on. So a little bit of money, but I took it all out. I am a financial guy who spent my entire life in the markets, and I don't have any money in it of measurable, I have a little bit of play money that I mess with, but I don't have it in it anymore. And to me, the reason why is it is turned into such a scam, that it isn't the merits of a company anymore. It used to be where you could look at things like, a Baltic Dry Index, or you could look at unemployment numbers, or you could look at, all of these things and have an honest chance of trying to gauge it. It's moved 100% by speculators. And the fact of the matter is, and I know this, the powers that be will keep it propped up to the very last day. They will not allow it to fall, because we have been programmed to say this is the measurement of how well our economy is doing. I'm not going to be the last one holding the bag.
No, I'm with you on that. So, okay, so let's say they pull their money out. Now, this is another one. I got an answer for this, but it's your show right now, bro. Okay, so they pulled their money out, because I know a number of people actually that have done this recently.
No.
Where do you think that money would have its most value? And yeah, I want to ask you that, because you are uniquely positioned to answer some of these questions. So, so they pull their money out. Where do you think they would get the most bang for the buck? Where would you put it?
Yeah. So the first thing I would do, and we talked about this earlier, is I would identify the stroke over me. So am I in debt? I would start there, but ultimately I think the single best investment there is land. I don't think there's a better one out there. Now, people have made the gold and silver argument to me, and I own both, but you can't eat it. And, you can also regulate it away and some of those things, which I guess you probably could with land too, but I would put land at top. But I think everybody's situation is different. And the first thing I would do is I would take a hard look at myself and say, who has stroke over me? And I would apply my resources to remove that stroke.
No, I guess what I was trying to get at was I think you answered it in your own way, but I mean, people are wanting specific measures, and I think yours is really the best answer because that's the way you can tailor make it to whomever it is. Yeah, who has stroke over me, man? I like that answer. I really do. Sounds like a permaculture answer, which is always it depends. Sorry about the distraction over here. Michelle is walking up the driveway and the bull is over here. I don't know. She was yelling. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem when you do an interview on the front porch.
It's good. I love it.
Okay, y'all. If you got any questions, I mean, like Renewed Homestead was talking about their 401k. There's a number of others out there too. I'm right there with you on. There's a big argument out there. Hey, I should put it into Bitcoin. Hey, I should put it into silver. I should put it into gold. I'm with you on the land. Honestly, I think like Mike Adams, the health ranger, said the other day that, you know what, you're probably money ahead just getting new tires on your vehicle, just changing your oil or buying storable food. In light of all the things that are going on right now, I mean, I don't know how you lose. Now, you are in the middle of Kansas in a very, very productive part of Kansas. Okay, a number of us out here are hearing a great many things, and I don't know that you have an answer for this, but I'm going to ask you because you are there. Okay, we're hearing very, very, very bad numbers concerning corn. A lot of it's there in Kansas.
Yep.
We're hearing bad things concerning wheat. A lot of it right there in Kansas. I just had a report yesterday from somebody that would know in that area. What's your thoughts about what's going on there? What are you hearing about the farmers around you regarding the wheat, the corn? To me, that's almost a rhetorical question, but I want people to hear it come from you.
Yeah, again, it's stroke. I know a lot of farmers. I'm completely surrounded by big farmers. I'm a little farmer out here, and I own a good chunk of land, but I'm the little guy.
Oh yeah,
and it's the price of fertilizers, and it's the way that we farm today. I mean, Billy, this as good as anybody. We need to change the way we grow food. We can't, spraying it every year and every year and every year and every year and pulling that, that nutrients out of that ground. And it's just not a good practice. So I can tell you firsthand, the farmers out here are struggling, but they're not struggling because the plants won't grow. They're struggling because we stripped the topsoil off of our land. They're struggling because they can't get fertilizer. They're struggling because of the way we go about doing it.
That's exactly why I said it was a rhetorical question, because I lived there and I know what it takes. And if you don't have anhydrous ammonia, a lot of these, I mean, it isn't what you have going on in that part of the country, and it's really all over the country. And I'm going to take a line basically from Jeff Lawton. It's not even farming; it is mining, because they're pulling everything out of the soil. It isn't adequately being replaced. Now, if all of a sudden you remove nitrogen from the picture, I don't think I can give it any justice. Just knowing what I know about where you are in that area around there, about what's about to befall this country. So let me kind of segue into that, because I know we're coming to the shady end of this, and man, I really want to keep this thing going because I got so many other questions. Now, we've talked about what you've done out there, the community you built, the home you've built, how you started from the ground up, how you escaped corporate America, all those things. I'm going to ask you something that probably very few people ask. I haven't given my opinion in quite some time on this, but where do you see, this might be the most consequential question for a number of people that are listening out there, where Tag, being an expert in a great many things about this thing, an autodidact, a person who studied these things, where do you see America, maybe not now, but let's say by the end of this year, maybe a year from now, maybe 5 years from now, take it any direction you want to go. What do you see on the horizon?
Yeah, it's a hard question because I understand how they can manipulate. And so, how they can print money and how they can band-aid things. But guys, I'm telling you, I don't see any relief in the inflation thing that's going on today. I mean, there's not a single, measurement out there that we would look at that says we're going to get some relief, coming here soon. So your ability to just even get things, in my opinion, is going to get hard. The stuff that's going on overseas. I know both sides of the argument, very, very well. I was in Washington not very long ago. And I don't see either side backing down. I just don't see it. And, I thought for a little while in the beginning that, we would do what we always do, which is we would buy them off and, pay a bunch of money and agree to whatever. And, people would play nice and allow us to continue our Ponzi scheme that we've been so good at for so long. But I think that a lot of these places, and I don't want to mention them because I don't want to get you in trouble, but, the bear and the dragon and, all of those places over there, we've completely surrounded them and they're saying, hey, this is it. This is our line, in my opinion. And so I think we got big trouble in front of us. And I think now this is why the stroke is so important. If they can't apply pressure to you, they can't hurt you, right? If you allow your life to live away where you got to have the brand new refrigerator, the brand new truck, you got to have all the payments, you got to have the mortgage. I have a guy who works for me who makes a quarter of what I would traditionally make, who lives in a $700,000 home and can barely feed his family. Mm-hmm. It's the most insane thing I've ever known in my entire life. So where do I see it? I see it nothing but trouble. And I think it's going to progressively get worse. And from a whole bunch of sides, I think the whole lockdown thing's coming back. I'm hearing lots of rumbles of that, from my sources. And I think it's just whittled away. And at some point in time, you may even get into a point where those of us who follow the directives, we'll get UBI, universal basic income, and they'll get everybody into the city and you'll live in an apartment and you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And they'll go down that road. And those of us who took a stand will probably be punished.
Well, I'll be happy to share a FEMA camp jail cell with you, Danny, Bobby, and all the others. Maybe they'll at least throw us in the same concentration camp, bro.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Maybe they'll just go ahead and put us all in the same spot before they decide to go ahead and give us the Zyklon B. So, right. Maybe I'll have good company on the way out, but I don't know that it would necessarily go that easy. So, I mean, we're hearing some pretty apocalyptic stuff, even from our own government. I mean, right now.
Yes.
So, I mean, do you think, because I keep getting this when Danny covered it the other day in one of his front porch talks, one of the things I keep getting is, man, I'm about a year away from being able to go ahead and do this. And no doubt somebody after hearing this interview is gonna probably rethink that thing.
Do it now.
Okay,
do it right now.
Okay. You just took that one right away from me because I was going to ask that very thing. Everybody's thinking they got more time than I think they got. Mm-hmm. You said it's going to get okay. You said the inflation is going through the roof. I could not agree more.
Yep.
What about food availability?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, you go to any grocery store today, and you might find 1,000 bags of peas, but you can't get okra or whatever, right? Or whatever the combination is. I mean, dry beans are up. I looked this morning. Are up 18% this year so far. 18%.
Yeah.
If with inflation, which inflation is just a tax. I mean, it's all it is, right? It's another way to put more money at you. I mean, it's all it is. But, I think it's going to get harder and harder to feed your family. But I think it's kind of by design. If you follow any of the, the Great Reset or the New World Order stuff or any of that stuff, they really think, and whether it's nefarious or not, I mean, I'll let somebody else debate that. But they really think we're better off in the cities, in a high rise, in living that life, let them take over everything else, let them handle everything else, which obviously I would strongly disagree with. But I think it's going to get hard all around. We have a company coming out here in May called the Buffalo Seed Company. They're coming out to my farm and we're going to film it when we're here, but they specialize in growing heirloom seeds that are particularly accustomed to my region. So they just have a small area that they focus on and, seed saving. Man, we're going to save the hell out of seeds this year. We're going to, because of what you just said right there, I believe the availability of some of that stuff is going to get very, very tough.
Man, so we're coming to the shady end of this stuff. I mean, to this interview. What advice do you give to the people out there that are on that knife's edge? I know we kind of covered it before. Mm-hmm. where's the first place they should start in your view? Because I guarantee, like I said, I never thought preparedness would ever become more mainstream. And everybody's asking, where do I start? I got an answer on this, but I want to hear your answer. They're that person. Where should they start? I mean, we'll talk about, I mean, where they end up is where you and I are.
Mhm.
But where do they start? Let's say it's a family living in a suburb.
Yep.
They got to raise up out of there. They know they do. Let's say they're living out in, strangely, let's say they're still located in Detroit. We're
Yep.
worried about the Donbass region. Let's worry about Detroit.
Right.
So let's say they know the water's jacked up there. They need to get out of that place. What's the first step they take? And I know it's almost a rhetorical question, but I got to ask it. What's the first?
No, I think this is super important.
Where we are.
I think this is a super important question because I think you can wage this war on many fronts. I don't think it has to be a singular approach. And what I mean by that is, so first thing, who has stroke, right? Get out of debt. Just get out of debt. Quit buying, the new Nike shoes every time they come out, the new Apple phone. My cell phone that I use every day is 4 years old and it works fine. I'm not going to change it till it breaks, right? So start getting rid of the stroke. And then at the exact same time, reach out, start getting involved in community. Look out at the prepper expos, look out at where the homesteading expos, get involved in the community, start building alliances. And, I did this in one of my videos earlier. I would not live on the land that I have right now if it wasn't for somebody I met at a meeting in this world who happened to call me and said, hey, Tag, this land is coming up for sale. You want to look at it? Never even made it to a realtor. Had I not built those networks. So network, and get rid of all the stroke. And then if you got the stroke gone, start putting your money away. I mean, a lot of people say to me, man, I really wish I had your resources. What they don't understand is for a decade, I saved my money. I didn't go on vacation. I didn't do those things. I didn't buy a new car. I put every penny I had away to go live free because it's that important to me.
No,
and then there came a time I had enough money and I pulled the trigger. So put money away, save your money, quit giving your money. That's another real good one too. Vote with your dollar, right? We could go on that for a whole nother show, but put money away, save it, get your mind and get focused and get committed on trying to break those chains. And every single one of you can do it. I'm telling you can do it.
Man, I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, everything you're saying, they probably heard from me, maybe not quite the same way, but it's funny how you've taken a different road to get to where you are, but I've taken exactly the same exact road. My most reliable vehicle is 22 years old.
Right.
And, it's,
right.
And if you read books like The Millionaire Next Door, you come to find out that everything you've been told about wealthy people in this country is exactly the polar opposite. They don't drive the fancy cars.
Right.
People that are responsibly wealthy, let's say.
Right.
They don't drive the fancy cars. They don't do what everybody else does. They don't eat out at every meal. They don't do, they're more frugal than anybody would ever believe. So, Tag, we're coming to the end of this. And, man, I'm sorry, folks. I know a lot of you had questions here, but I kind of hogged them all to myself. How do people get a hold of you, or can they get a hold of you, or should they get a hold of you outside of the YouTube channel? Is there other resources you could direct them to?
Sure. Well, first of all, anybody who's interested in getting free, I will help in any way that I can help, because I think we all need to take a stand and we need to take it right now. So you can email me direct at tagandb@lifedonefree.com. I would be happy to, take any of those. The only social media presence we have is on YouTube and then on Facebook. You can find the Life Done Free page on Facebook. And again, comment. I reply to 100% of the comments on my YouTube channel. Now, in fairness, I've got 3,000 subscribers. It's not that hard, right? You get up to a channel like yours, Bobby, becomes a lot harder to do that. But I'm active, email, Facebook, message me, get on the channel. I'll be happy to talk to anybody, and I would be super happy to help in any way that I can.
Are there any other resources, any events coming up that people, that's another one I get too, is like, hey, I want to learn how to butcher. Where do I go to do that? I know you guys do a lot of events.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a number of people that would like to know if you have anything coming up.
Yeah. So if you get on Facebook or MeWe, there's a thing out there called the Midwest Preparedness Project. And, we work really hard on it. We try to bring people in all the time. I know, Billy, we've had some conversations with you, right? About doing some of this kind of stuff. And so we bring classes in and all that, but it's isolated to the Midwest, right? But I promise you, these kinds of things go on all over. They're in every state. There's groups out there everywhere. And there's, places like, the survivalist boards that have state specific pages. There's just a bunch of them out there, just get on the computer and find your community. But we would love to have you come out to the Midwest, project. It's a lot of fun. The next one will go on probably end of September. be the next one here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly, folks. That's why I was getting when I had the folks on here from Living Free in Tennessee. Um,
Mhm.
there's all kinds of different events out there, and Tag's absolutely right.
Mhm.
It's funny because everybody that we mutually know, I met at one of these events
Right.
initially. I didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
First one I ever went to, I didn't know. I mean, be honest with you, back, the first one I ever went to, I thought I accidentally rolled up on a Klan meeting. And it was, I mean,
Yeah.
dude, that's a whole story unto itself.
Yeah.
Turns out I had more in common actually with a lot of those folks than I ever. Yeah, I got in there. I was like, okay, this is strange, but yeah, they were all welcoming, and I
Yeah.
was like, man, I hope I didn't just wind up in an Eagles song or something, man. They start stabbing me with some steely knives, dude. I'm out of this
Yeah.
place. But
Yeah.
it was all good. But the cool thing is that it didn't matter for anybody out there that's thinking, oh man, I don't know if I'd be welcome there, or don't believe this garbage about,
Yeah.
I've never been more welcome in my life than in these kinds of gatherings. And so anybody out there that's thinking that you look like me and you've been told a bunch of garbage, you want to find out the most welcome person in there. Believe it or not, are the outliers. It's like an aisle of misfit toys, bro.
Yeah.
I mean,
It is. It totally is.
we're a bunch of people that can't get a. I'm not going to say we can't get along, but you don't feel at home. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Tag, but you feel more at home with the people in that room than many of the people in your own family a lot of times.
Oh, but we go out to these events and I feel so normal. I can just be me, I can just be Tag. I don't have to, worry about anything. We had at this last one just a couple weeks ago, I had a couple people from my channel show up. I met for the first time. They were great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. And actually one of them traded my bride some new sourdough starter. We had a great time. It was wonderful.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
that's
everybody in.
We've
done
exactly
these
what I'm
now.
finding. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's because, Billy, we've done 18 of these. This last one was the 18th, and we've never had a fist fight.
No, man. That's what most people, if they're believing or listening to a lot of these people in the mainstream media. I know that we got to get going here, bro, but this is important because a lot of people are thinking, well, am I going to feel welcome there? Am I going to do this? I guarantee you, y'all, I can walk into any festival because I've been to a lot of these. I've even emceed a number of events for Bobby.
Yeah.
And in the past, every single time you're going to find out that these are without a doubt the salt of the people. Now, salt of the earth kind of people, but if I'm going to say one thing, Tag, that's critical, it's going to be that, and I was every bit as guilty too, is that everybody in there at first is reluctant to speak to the next person because we all come from, I mean, is that your experience as well? I think you kind of covered it.
Oh, yeah. I've got a friend of mine named Kyle who he's been coming to him for 4 or 5 years. And he told me from the very beginning, but this is going to have to go slow. I got to get comfortable. But today, he was out at my house just the other day, out here shooting with us. So it does take a little bit of time. But if you come out to one of the projects and I see you, I will come seek you out. And I will do my best to make you feel comfortable, whether it's you or, the soon-to-be homesteader, Kenneth Sword, Sonny Preps, Glenn S., Grossmania, Homesteader, Dwight, any of them on that list. I would do my best to make them feel as comfortable as I could.
Yeah, I know you would. And so would I.
Yeah.
And that's one of the cool things. I mean, everybody seems to be more reluctant to get together these days. A lot of folks are like, well, I don't know about this or I don't know about that. But at the end of the day, I had to rethink this whole loner thing. And I got my own mutual assistant group up here as well. And it's growing.
Yep.
Based on a number of factors. So that in the future, Tag, I'd love to do a little roundtable with you and a number of others.
I'm in.
From undisclosed locations for reasons of security.
Yep.
Maybe we can do a little bit of this and talk about how we are all building this community, because there are so many people out there, whether it may be the grandma, and there's some of you in this thread here that I know about, and they're wondering, man, how do I get myself into this community? Man, I'm pushing 80 years old. Well, you know what? I'd take a dedicated 80-year-old grandmother who knows how to make a good pot of soup over some kid who feels like he's entitled to the food just because he showed up. And I'm sure you're the same way.
Every day. That's not even a close one.
Yeah. So Tag, I know we got to get rolling here, bro. Like I said, folks, hit that thumb. Well, I guess it's too late to hit the thumbs up, but definitely check out Life Done Free. One more time before we get off here, Tag, how do they get a hold of you?
Yes, you can find me on YouTube, Life Done Free, Facebook, Life Done Free. You can email me at tagandb@lifedonefree.com. Any of them will work fine. I'll respond to every one of them.
Man, you're the man. Thank you so much for taking your time out to do this, buddy.
Hold the line. Don't give an inch.
That's what I'm talking about. We'll see y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in.
See you guys.
What on earth is going on up in here? Are you still?